our new series where we will be tackling the problem of object-oriented programming in Python. Now, object-oriented programming is a very critical aspect of our industry. And it is one of those things which everybody should have some idea on. Now, object-oriented programming can be a very difficult task for people to learn and understand. But today, what we're going to do is we are going to simplify this process for everyone, right? So let's talk about how we can simplify this process. Over the coming few weeks, we are going to be looking at the various different concepts which are covered as part of our object-oriented programming. And we are going to talk about how we can improve our Pythonic programming skills by leveraging these set object-oriented concepts. Now, these are all very important concepts which will be very relevant for you as and when you continue to build your career. Okay, so now object-oriented programming consists of many different parts. So we have object-oriented programming. This is something which Python has picked up from C++. Okay. So today we're going to introduce ourselves to the concept of object-oriented programming. We're going to look at different ways in which we can utilize object-oriented programming and how to create a class and how to create objects. Okay. Now, the idea behind our OOP concept is that we want to use objects and classes to structure code in a way that it resembles real life. Okay, we want our code to resemble real life. Okay, so this will allow us to, create entities and relationships within our Python code itself. Something which is not common in regular programming is something that we will try to achieve as part of our object-oriented programming. We will focus on reusability. We will focus on modularity. And we will focus on organization. These are the different aspects of object-oriented programming that we will look at. Okay, so we have classes. This is the first thing. Okay, class is the first thing that you will be covering as part of object-oriented programming. Now, what is a class? A class is a blueprint. Okay, so in essence, it is nothing but a map that our Python code will follow for creation of objects. Okay, so the class will help us in defining the properties of various different objects. Okay, and it will also define the behavior of those said objects. So this is the overview that we have for our classes. Now, let's talk about creating some classes. How to create classes, that is the next thing that we need to look at. So, now, we will initialize a class. Okay. And again, as we have covered in various different other topics, our class will also have a defined syntax. Okay. It will follow a well-defined syntax. So it makes easier for us to understand how a class is going to be created. Okay. So we will say class. Okay. And as you can see that it is a keyword, and as such, it has been highlighted. Okay. And the class that we are going to create, we are going to call that class as dog. Okay. Now, you have already worked, I'm sure most of you all have already worked with functions before in Python. And we know how functions are going to work, right? But classes work somewhat differently. I'm not going to create parentheses here because we are not creating a function. We are creating a class. So this is a difference that we need to keep in mind. Now, once your class has been created, okay, you need to start exploring some parameters. Okay, so within the class, I will create a method. Okay, and you can see here that it is automatically showing the method that we should try and create for our class. Okay, but we will not follow this. We will write our own method. I'll say def init. And within this, we will pass some parameters. Now, what are the parameters that I want to pass? The parameters that I want to pass are self. We will also pass name, and we will also pass breed. Okay. Now, what is this init function and how does it work? Okay. So, init method is used for initialization. At a base level, this is what we are going to use the init method for. This is going to be created when this is going to be called. Okay, this function is going to be called, right? So let's write it in that way itself. So it will be called when a new instance or a new object of a class is created. Okay, so anytime you create a new object, okay, it is going to call that. Now, what it will do is instead of an object starting from zero, that is starting from scratch, it will create that object and it will set up the initial state for that object. Okay. So we will have something also known as the self parameters. Okay. So what is this self parameter? Okay. So the init method that we have created here, right? This will take at least one argument. And we are going to call this argument self. Okay. So this refers to what? What is this self? This will refer to the instance of any object being created. Okay. And this allows for you, okay, the main purpose here is that this will allow us to modify the object that we are creating, right? So if you want to make any changes or anything like that, you will use this self method. Okay. So now let us create let's call these attributes that we have created. We will say self nom dot name equals to self dot name. And then we will say self dot breed equals to breed. Now we have created our initial value. Okay. Now, let us create another function here, right? And I will call this function description. Okay. And this will take self as the input. So it knows that it has to go back to the init function. Okay. So we will return f string here. And we will say that self dot name is a self dot breed. Okay. If you notice here, the way we are writing our method description, it works exactly the same. Okay. Now, once we have created this class, so this is all we are going to add in the class for now, because we will try to access the values which are present in the class. So now that we have created a class, we will mention, let's say that I will call this class and I will say that I have a dog. His name is some name that I will give here. Okay. And I will also mention the breed, this class. Okay. Done. Right. So let us run this as a separate line actually. So first we will obviously run this, and Google Colab is connecting. Right. So we will pass the value. Okay. We have created a class called dog. Now within that dog, we have created some functions, okay, some methods. And for those methods, we are going to pass an instance of those methods. Okay. So here we are saying that dog, and the dog here is Klaus, and he is a black Labrador. So we will make that happen. And then we can access individual values. For example, I can say my underscore dog dot name. Okay. So what will it do? It will give me the name of my dog. Okay. Then similarly, I can also say my underscore dog dot breed, and this will give me the breed. Okay. And if I want to access this instance, okay, if I want to access this entire instance, what can I say? Say my underscore dog dot description. Now we'll access this. Okay. No. Did I make a spelling mistake here? Might be. So here we will try to access it. Now we are not able to access this attribute. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just print this value here. Okay. And I make that mistake. Okay. The mistake was in the formatting. Okay. So there was a mistake of indentation here. That's why it was not able to access that value. So now if we run this, you can see that we are able to access this value. Now, similarly, we can add more and more values in our code. Okay, we can try to do different things, right? We can try to add more methods in this. So that is what we will do. So let's take this class itself, okay, and let's try to create another some more values for this class. Now, keep in mind the indentation here is very important. Okay, so let's create a function. Let's create a method here. We will keep, since it is using the same concept as a function, there might be a mistake, but we have to ensure that you are not making that mistake. Okay. So we will say bark, and here I will say return. And again, I can give a f string here if I want to. Okay. And this will return that value for me. Now I've given a f string here. It may not be necessary, but at the same time, this f string will help you in understanding or any future modifications that you want to make for your code. Okay. Then next, I will also create another method called fetch. And within the fetch, again, we are passing one parameter, which is self. Okay. We are only passing one parameter, self. So again, here I will again take a return statement. And again, I will create a f string that says self.name is fetching the ball for me. Okay, done. Now we have created three functions here: description, bark, and fetch. All of them are taking in inputs from our init method directly. We're not passing any specific value to these methods. Okay. So fetch is directly being pointed at the init method, as is the bark method, as is the description method. Okay. All of them are working in the same way. Okay. All of them are working in exactly the same way. Okay. So this brings us to the question, right? How can we use all of these methods? Okay. What do I do to use these methods? Now, here we have seen that all we need to do is we have to create an instance for our class. So that's what we will do. So I'll say dog1, and we will say dog. And again, we will pass some values, right? So we will say Klaus. And again, I'm using the same values here. And we'll say black. And similarly, we'll create another instance here. Okay, one more instance will be created here. And again, we will take a dog and we will say that this is Lucky the Husky. Okay, so we have created two different instances for our class. Okay, so now our class is created and it is running. Okay, so what are the different approaches that we can have here? Right, we can call our values directly. Okay, so let's say that I want to say dog1 dot bark. So what will be the output? Sorry, it should be dog1. This is the instance of that class. Okay. So for example, here, if you want to modify this code, we can say for I in range 0 to 10. And then we will take this value and we can add it as a print statement, or we can directly return the output. But here you can see, once it is in the loop, right, the output is created, but it is not returned. Okay. So we need to print this output here for us. Without printing it, it will not be accessed. Okay. We want to display the output. So it will return whatever output you're giving, and it will give us that access here. Now, I can also say, let's say, dog2 dot fetch. Okay. So it is automatically passing that specific value for me. So I don't have to again and again print that output or create a separate statement every time. Once that instance has been created, I can utilize that instance for as long as I want. Okay. You can make changes within the methods that you're creating in the class. You can modify the methods. Okay. And you can try out different methods. Okay. So now this is how our classes are going to work. Okay. So if you are creating a class, right, let's say that you're creating some class called class name. What is the first thing that you need to do? We need to initialize some attributes for us. Okay. We need to initialize some attributes for us. So we will say def in. Now, def. Where have we seen def before? Def is used in user-defined functions, but this is somewhat different from user-defined functions. Here we will again say self, and we will pass some arguments. Okay. And that is how it is going to work. But what we will say here is that whatever is the first attribute, okay, so whatever is the first attribute which is associated with this attribute will take this value. Okay. Then whatever is the second attribute that we are creating here, this will take the second value. Now, if you try to create a third attribute, that is not going to work because there is no attribute 3 which has been declared. Okay. Here you have declared just 2 values. So it will just take those 2 attributes, nothing else. Okay. So that is how our init method is going to work. Right? Now, does it mean that you cannot create a class without creating the init method? No. You can create a class in Python without having any kind of init method. So what is the benefit of creating a custom init method? It's the fact that you can control what kind of inputs are coming into your class. What kind of objects is your class accepting? Okay, what kind of instances are being created? All right. These are the benefits of using our init function. Now, if you don't create a init function, that is also fine. If you are somebody who doesn't feel like they should create one, that's okay. Right? Because what it will do is it will take a default value. Okay. It will take some default value, which is already initialized in Python. What will this default value do? This default value will do exactly nothing. Nothing at all. No changes, none whatsoever. Okay. So that is how our classes are going to work. Now, this is a very, very basic introduction of class. Okay. There are a lot of there are a lot of things which are involved as part of the class. Okay. So we are going to learn about these various methods. We are going to learn about things such as inheritance and how it works. We are going to look at encapsulation. We are going to look at polymorphism. We are also going to look at different levels of access. For example, do you have a private method or you have a public method? What are those and how are those going to work? These are the different things that we will cover as part of our learning experience throughout this journey. So we're definitely very excited to have all of you all join us here so that you can gain more experience. Okay. So again, thank you so much to everyone who has joined in today. And we are very excited to see you guys next week.